Right. Good morning, everyone. And thanks a lot for being on our panel here. I'd like to welcome all of our panelists with Peter Fischer, Christina Vallgren, and Logan. Sorry, your surname.
Baskaran.
Yes. So a diverse panel here, and I'm Adrian Cheong, your host. First, we'll start with some introductions. I'm a practicing cardiologist. I work in Hong Kong, senior managing partner at Virtus Medical Group. Our cardiology grouping has 9 cardiologists. I specialize in interventional cardiology, meaning valve repair, valve replacement, complex interventions, complex PCI. I'm also an early stage medtech investor. Over to you, Peter.
Yeah, Peter Fischer, CEO of Inkspace Imaging. We are reshaping the future of MRI with our products. I'm a physicist by training. Have done the last 25 years product development, both in the existing silicon industry world, but also now with printed electronics for the past more than a decade. Live in the Bay Area currently.
Good morning, everyone. So my name is Christina. I'm the CEO and the co-founder of Terapet. So I'm a physicist by training. So before founding Terapet, I have been working as a physicist at CERN, the European Organization for Research, Nuclear Research, for the last 12 years. So at Terapet, we're developing nuclear imaging devices targeting different areas in radiotherapy and also nuclear imaging fields. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Logan Baskaran. I'm a practicing cardiologist at the National Heart Centre, Singapore, and also have a degree in medical physics. I'm the director of our AI research lab here at the National Heart Centre, Singapore, where we innovate to identify coronary artery disease and work towards preventative medicine. The best IP that we have from our AI research lab, we have spun off into Tia Health, for which I'm a co-founder. So this is a startup developing and implementing these products across Southeast Asia and the rest of Asia as well. And I'm the co-founder for that.
Well, thanks a lot for your introduction. So diagnostics is a huge subject. So almost don't know where to start. But, here we have improving images. Peter's improving quality of images, of MRI images. Christina is trying to make therapeutics more precise, more personalized, and also creating a new PET scanner for the whole body. And then Logan is trying to make risk prediction more effective. We'll start with the software as a medical device, AI. So I'm a user of AI myself, apart from Bioworld, my company investing in AI companies. And in my clinical practice, we have 9 doctors of various ages. The senior partner is 70-something years old. And then he grew up in the age where there was no AI, there was just human thought. And, the youngest one is in his 30s. And we all have different opinions about AI and, CT coronary angiogram, CT FFR, etc. The question is, how do you overcome clinician inertia to integrate AI into practice? You have this young whippersnapper co-pilot that's telling you to do stuff. How, as a clinician, as a mature clinician, are you going to accept that? How do you convince clinicians to do that?
So I think that's an excellent question, Adrian. AI is software from our point of view and what we do, but software is also still technology. So none of this is new. In medical healthcare, technology always evolves and moves forward, whether it's hardware, software, AI. So when doctors have to adapt to new imaging modalities, for example, CT was a relatively new thing which wasn't present 10 to 15 years ago, or at least not widespread a couple of decades ago. What was interesting is you need to show some level of trust. You need to show that there is accuracy, and you need to show relatability to the current gold standard. So that's what we need to do. In terms of AI and our product, as well as the research that we do, what we try to show is, hey, we can show you that the products that we have are developed by clinicians, so by doctors, for doctors, and that gives some level of trust. The people who develop it are key opinion leaders, and they're not junior young people. They're very established in their field, so to speak, and they have overcome their resistance in AI to help develop this product. We show that this is accurate because it reports and derives information to the same level of seniority or accuracy as any expert level. And so we test these cases blind. Doctors who are resistant or, so to speak, a bit wary of AI, they bring their images or their CT scanners, the CT scans of their patients, run it through our algorithm, and then they see the result and compare it to themselves or their junior fellows. And that's how we convince them. Now, in terms of integrating, we never take control from the doctors. We give control back to the doctors. But because what we do is we spend all the time doing the tedious work and getting the information and extracting more information, so the doctors pay more attention to their patients. So that's what we try to do. And so far, we've had quite a decent success.
And how do you prove value for money for things like these? I mean, thing is, when you have a piece of hardware, people are willing to pay for it. If it's a blood test, you feel the needle go into your skin and the tube of blood coming out. But AI is kind of something floating in the internet. And that concept, like, for example, in mainland China, AI reimbursement is a difficult subject. You're not allowed to pay for AI itself. It has to be integrated into the system. So how do you convince people that it's value for money?
So that's a very good point. Ultimately, we don't think that AI should be charged for AI's sake itself. As you said, value for money in terms of healthcare outcomes and things like that. These things are what matters the most. So the first thing is there is an increasing awareness from both the patient and doctor or clinician point of view that preventative medicine is far more important. Coronary artery disease is the world's #1 killer. It is increasing, especially in this part of the world. It's expected to double in the next 25 years. And also, ultimately, it can be detected using CT scans. It's the only non-invasive way and the #1 way to detect this disease. So by detecting disease, we need to prove to people that you can track and prevent the heart attack which comes down the line. I think there is a very clear awareness on that part. The next part is how can AI or the software help? Well, it helps you increase the amount of patients who can go through and have scans by decreasing the bottleneck by 6 to 10 times at least. The more people you can scan, the more people you can detect disease and prevent disease from happening.
Thank you. The other interesting thing about AI is that it's very much in the public's mind. It's very much in the clinician's mind. Everyone's talking about AI, DeepSeek, ChatGPT, etc., Perplexity. How important is actually patient advocacy and creating a buzz, creating publicity in increasing the acceptance or pushing the acceptance of AI diagnostic modalities into actual daily clinical practice? I mean, I experienced it myself. Before I didn't use CTFFR, but then one of my very, very educated patients who invests in medtech as well, he's like, I just had the CT scan. I can see this. It looks quite severe LAD stenosis, left anterior descending artery stenosis on the CT scan, but I don't have any symptoms. Can you do CTFFR in it? He actually asked me for it. And that actually initiated my journey into AI-assisted diagnosis there. And in the end, we did the CTFFR, and it was borderline, and we decided that we'd watch it for the time being. So, I mean, what do you think of the role of patient advocacy and education?
So I really like how you're carrying on this conversation and moderating it, Adrian. It sounds like I'm just discussing things with a colleague in clinic, but essentially, the advocacy from the patient point of view isn't always 100% there. So you were, so to speak, fortunate, or you were in a situation where you had a very well-educated and typically reasonably wealthy or of a high socioeconomic status patient inquiring about these things. And we have that the same as well as where we work. But because we're a government hospital, that's where we work, and we have mainly subsidized patients, it's not always there. Just the simple awareness of compliance or adherence to medication, primary prevention, smoking cessation isn't always there. So I think it has to be very much determined by the clinician or the doctor. That's why ultimately AI and software needs to give control to the clinician, who then needs to give control to the patient. So that's how I think it works. It doesn't change that relationship very much at all. Technology gives control to the clinician, clinician gives control to the patient. And that's how the partnership is made. So that's what I think about it.
Thank you very much. So over to hardware now with Peter and Christina. So with hardware diagnostics here, you're looking at, especially your two products, your two companies, you're looking at, working with the incumbents, the big three imaging companies, etc. How do you form partnerships with them, and how do you actually penetrate their markets? Go for it, Peter.
Okay, so it's all about partnership, right? So, I mean, you need to do, it's the same as, it's pretty similar to what you just discussed. There needs to be education, right? No false promises, and you promote your product. You try to show that that's an extension of what they already have, right? So in our case, with MRI receive coils, that's a well-established market. Everyone knows that MRI is a gold standard in diagnostic imaging. And so there are hundreds of millions of MRI exams performed every year. So there's an install base of scanner, there's an install base of coils, and clinicians have used this for decades, right? And now there is this tiny startup coming out of Berkeley telling everyone that the coil performance is so much better in terms of precision, temporal spatial resolution, and acceleration. So actually the clinicians can see things much quicker. They can see more details than they could ever see with an MR, and in a much shorter time, which is also important for patients, right? And that's also what we promote. So working with the, as you call them, incumbents, and let's say also smaller MRI vendors, it's all about partnering, right? Not trying to compete with a multi-billion-dollar company, but offering solution as an extension of their platform. And what we found is that working with the clinicians, with the radiologists in our case, it helps a lot if we get support from the clinicians in promoting the product. So that's why we have decided to work with a multitude of key opinion leaders, first in the US, and then we want to expand to Europe and Asia. And that also helps in the collaboration with the OEMs to see the acceptance in the field.
Thank you. Christina.
So obviously, hardware is hard. It's not only hard to build, it's also very hard to raise money for hardware. So normally, often when we talk to investors, they say, oh no, are you building such big hardware? Terapet, the PET is a PET scanner, and the Tera is big. So what we do is that we build the biggest PET scanner ever, so a total body PET scanner. So when investors say, okay, it's hard, but of course, the second question they have is also that how do you compete with the big players like Siemens, GE? To be honest, I mean, everyone knows a startup like us, there's no way that we can compete with the big players. If we go to hospital and even we tell them we sell the best PET scanners in the world, they would never buy it. It's not because our device is not good enough. It's because of the after-sales service, because of the reputation, and also most of the hospitals, they are sometimes, let's say, blackmailed by the big players. If a Siemens hospital has only Siemens brand and the GE hospital only has a GE brands, obviously. So there's many different reasons that's very hard for the startup to enter the market. So therefore, as a startup, you have to have not only innovative product, you also need to have innovative business model as well. So I think that competing with the big players is not really smart. So you need to have a complementary methods. Look into very niche market where the startups can bring values, and also that the startups are not head-on compete with the big players, but to complement what the big players not doing and or maybe not willing to do or not daring to do because the companies are just too big to be agile. So that's what I think, that the startups can bring the real value, not only to the patients, but also to the whole ecosystem.
Right. So, talking about innovative business models, can you elaborate more?
Elaborate.
Yeah.
So just to give an idea of what we are doing. So we are building a PET scanner, a total body PET scanner. So obviously the easiest business model that you have is to go to the hospital and sell it to the hospital, right? So it's unit sales. But what we are doing is that we are actually not going to the hospital to directly sell it to the hospital, but together with the hospital, we partner with them so that instead of selling to them, so we become a device, infrastructure, and service provider. So we're helping the hospitals that to help the pharmaceutical company, biotech companies to do clinical trials. So that's not a direct competition towards the hospital or towards the big players, because Siemens or GE, they are just too big. They will never even become a service provider for anyone. So they sell so well. So what we do is that together partner the hospitals. So we help someone who really need the clinical trials. So already now, so together with Karolinska and another 5 national hospitals in Sweden, so we are establishing the first European national-wide diagnostics trial centers. So our goal is that to really partner, to put all the partners together to bring the value to the pharmaceutical companies. So make the clinical trials more centralized, more efficient, and also that we can together to bring the drugs really close to the patients faster. So what we do, we think that we have not only an innovative product, we also have a very innovative business models to help us to bring our product to the market quicker.
Right. So targeting the drug pipeline, creation of new drugs, rather than just pure clinical service.
Exactly.
Okay.
So we look at the whole healthcare as a whole, the complete entire healthcare system. So then we looked at where is the need to be placed.
Where's your niche? Great. So, and for Peter, I wanted to ask, because your MRI coils are very innovative. They're conformational. They're very light. Who do you choose to partner with? As a startup company, you can't work with everyone. I mean, or can you work with everyone? Do you go broad and fast, or do you have a deep partnership with one single company, and then you can keep having feedback with them and improve your product until you get to a certain level of advanced maturity, and then you can start working with other partners? I mean, how do you make that choice?
I think I have to answer it from 2 viewing angles. One is we want to get this technology out into the market, into the healthcare systems around the world. That's our mission, because we truly think that it delivers better healthcare, both for the patient, but also for the clinicians, basically. Quicker, more precise diagnostics in a shorter time, and for the patient, obviously, less exams. So from a rollout perspective, we had defined that we are working with certain key opinion leaders in the field to basically let them help us to demonstrate why the product is so much better and which additional use cases one can do, which they couldn't do before with MRI. So we have, let's say, 2 handful of key opinion leaders in the US. We are working this very closely to get also publications, white papers out of them. In terms of the big players, and from an investor perspective, our mission is obviously also to have this company at some point of time acquired, right? So my strategy from early on was we work with as many OEMs as possible, but obviously as a startup, you're resource limited, you're constrained, right? So we have quickly decided that we are working with the top 3 first. So we have already products cleared for GE and Siemens, and after that happened, we got a huge spike in interest from Philips because they're the number 3, and they are strongly interested in our coil portfolio as well. So as a CEO, unfortunately, I have to say more often no to things that I can say yes to new projects, since you never have unlimited funds, right? And I totally agree. It's, from my perspective, what I see, much harder to raise money for hardware companies, especially in fields where the innovation before us has happened like 20 years ago, right? So we are very late innovator in a very well-established market. So it's never been easy to raise a ton of money. But so far the strategy worked out. We have products cleared for GE and Siemens, and now they're on the field and people talk about it at conferences, they publish. And so other hospitals see the value add. And some hospitals, as you said, they are, let's say, having only Philips equipment or only Siemens equipment. And some are also afraid to buy directly from startups. So you have to partner also with the OEM. So that's our strategy. We sell directly, but we also sell through the OEMs. And that has worked so far for us. But we are still in an early revenue growth phase. So.
Thank you. Now, pivoting a little bit to the elephant in the room, geopolitics. It applies to hardware and software. So from the software angle, anything to do with AI is sensitive these days. You have to host it on the cloud system. Maybe, I don't know, in Singapore, you might be on AWS, but then, if you're trying to go into mainland China, for example, then it has to be a different kettle of fish. How do you see this as an obstacle or opportunity in your global rollout of your products? And how do you mitigate these things?
So we see this as a huge opportunity. This wasn't brought about from recent geopolitical events, but actually pure clinician need. So whilst there have been competitors from, so to speak, China and the US in some of this space and a little bit of what we do, what is important in the healthcare space is patient data and thus clinician trust. So the reason that a lot of these software solution or AI-based companies have difficulty coming into this part of the world is not just the revenue model, but also how the data is handled. A lot of them are cloud-based because that is obviously a good way to save money, but also to have rapid throughput. We developed ours from the ground up by clinicians because of the problems that I faced and my colleagues and key opinion leaders in this part of the world faced. We don't want to send data up to the cloud. We don't want to share it everywhere else. We don't want it accessed by other third parties, be it another startup or another company. And because of that, our products are unique in that they can be integrated at multiple levels. So directly pipe from the scanner, such as the CT scanner, to the software to produce an output within a server, within an institution or hospital, within a server that is amongst many hospitals, for example, in private healthcare groups, or on the cloud. So we are agile enough to adapt to all of those. And they ultimately self-train and use federated learning as well. So each hospital or site can use their model and corrections from the clinician to retrain it so that we can avoid drift and we can keep it up to date to that cohort, to that population, to that institution, because that varies as well. So that's what we see as an opportunity.
Interesting. So in hardware, obviously, with PET CT scanners, we're talking about rare earths. With MRI coils and things, we're talking about rare earth as well, and maybe microchips. How are we going to mitigate these supply chain issues? Christina?
Yeah, recently we just had everyone knows because the tariff issue with US between US and China. So in the beginning of April, I think Chinese government just decided certainly that they banned all the exports. I mean, you have to apply for the export license. All the exports towards any countries, the rare earth materials. So for us, it's quite a kind of shock because most of our how do you say, scintillators, the earth materials that we import them from China. But obviously, in our case, we got a lot of support from the Swiss government. So Terapet is a Swiss-based company. So apparently the relationship between Switzerland and China is very good. So in this tunnel period, so it's really good. So that we got the support from the Swiss government. So even the Swiss government had to go inside and tells the Chinese Ministry of Commerce that to release all the export license applications for the Swiss startups. So that was a kind of advantage that we have in our particular case. Obviously, I mean, I think you need to de-risk for the supply chain. It's very important, especially when you build a hardware. So you need to really to think about when you start for different parts, equipment that you need to have several suppliers located in different areas in order to de-risk the supply chain issue down the road.
In summary, be aware of your political surroundings, be friendly with your local politicians, and be aware of the global political situation, because it can throw a spanner in your works.
Yeah, and you have to, I mean, as in every industry, you have to manage your supply chain, right? You need to have second sources, you need to qualify them, carefully monitor them. You have to have your own incoming inspection to make sure that whatever you get delivered is according to a specification. So in our case, the more critical, more IP relevant materials they're all sourced in the US directly. And the more standard electronic components, as everyone, we're sourcing them from around the world. So we don't have any rare fancy materials in our system, at least not rare earths. And so for us, that's more difficult. But also in previous jobs, basically you have to constantly manage your supply chain. So there are professionals doing that as much as we have RF engineers on our team. We need to have someone who is a professional and managing and doing the risk management and all of that, and working with your with material providers, right? And then expand as and also for the manufacturing, for instance, right? Currently, we do all the manufacturing in house, and I plan to continue doing that for quite some time, and then only outsource standard PCB related components, and then decide where to go depending on the volume and all of that, and then obviously. Especially being located in the US now, you have to be carefully monitoring where you place your bets and all the interactions we already had 5 years ago. Trade wars between the US and China made everything more complicated, but that's true for everyone using electronic components around the world.
Right. Thank you. So in summary, for SAMD, it's localization, keep things local and personalized, and for hardware, be aware of your political surroundings and keep an eye on global politics, and also build resilience into your supply chain to start with from the very beginning. So finally, I'm going to ask from each of you just a brief talk about what you envisage in the next 5 years in your particular area. What would be the most exciting developments in diagnostics?
So I obviously speaking from a biased point of view, but essentially implementation and integration of workflows which help doctors do their job the best to identify disease and prevent it before it happens. So that's what I want, and I think it's a realistic goal.
Thank you. Christina?
As both me and Peter agree that it's very hard to raise funds for hardware companies, obviously. So I would like to tell all the investors down there. So, I mean, it's nice to invest in a trend, AI. I think a lot of companies, like AI companies, they raise tons of the money because as soon as you are AI labeled, so you can raise funds. But hardware is hard from the idea to the market. The path is extremely long. So, but hardware is very tangible. So it's less how do you say, influenced by the bubbles. I mean, it's more tangible for all the risk that we have surrounded. So I hope that more and more investors could look into the opportunities in the hardware. So at least you know what you get. It's not just in the air.
Thank you.
Yeah, in our case for MRI diagnostic imaging, obviously there's a ton of AI startups also working on image recognition improvements and the image quality, less noisy images, all of that. But I think the key players in the market have understood that AI is making use of the data which come out of the coils, right? So everyone has a 3T or 1.5 Tesla scanners. The most crucial component in diagnostic imaging to create high image quality at the shortest amount of time, at the end of the day, is a coil we are bringing to the market. So we are meanwhile collaborating with 2 AI software companies which have realized that all the data they're getting, if they get our coil with much better data input, their output will also be significantly different. So there's interest from 2 AI software companies, both targeting also image quality and speed. That's exactly what we deliver with our coils. And I think the combination of this will be very beneficial for the clinicians, but also most importantly to me, to the patient. So getting a quicker diagnostics and takes less long, and especially for the kids, less sedation required.
Thank you. And lastly, as a clinician, we come back here again, full circle. I look forward to AI diagnostics helping me to make risk predictions more accurate, images easier on the eye and higher spatial resolution, and therapeutics more personalized. With that, I close this session. Thank you.